What happens when you have a pivotal moment and a realization that you've been undervaluing your capabilities for success? That's what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I learn right alongside you from amazing leaders like my guest today. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, a portfolio career network where women are building what's next. I am so excited about this conversation with Liz Lopez. She's an executive coach, strategic advisor, two-time best-selling author, and an international speaker, and she guides corporate leaders and entrepreneurs how to elevate their visibility, expand influence, and achieve meaningful success. And her storytelling is so captivating. I can't wait for you to hear it. But I'll tell you behind the scenes that I got to see and meet and hear her live. I was at Speaker Friends Live in Chicago, and Liz came on about 2/3 of the way into the speakers. And right after she spoke, I beelined over to her and I said, "Liz, I have to have you on my show." She, of course, agreed, but the thing that you can't see is that we were both wearing our favorite color, hot pink. So, of course, she had to be on this show. But for real, the reason that I have her on this show is because I know that the advice and her stories are going to deeply resonate with you on how to tap in to believing in yourself, gaining confidence at every career level. We've all had those moments of doubt. Let's get started with this conversation now. Liz, I'm so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today.
Woohoo! Natalie, I'm really glad to be here today. Thanks so much for having me.
You have had such an interesting story, and I always like to give a snapshot for our listeners about bringing us to this moment right now.
A lot of people come into their business and they have this great big plan and they're going to do this thing. And that was not me at all. I actually had a corporate job, worked with great people, didn't make a lot of money, but I had just enough to buy a house. And a few months after buying this house, I went home after work, went into the garage, turned on the faucet, and the wall exploded. And there's all this water gushing out. Well, about an hour later, there's a very happy plumber in my house telling me, don't worry, we can fix it. It's $1,500. Well, I just bought that house. He might as well have said 15 million. And I went to bed that night defeated. I didn't know how I was going to do this. Thankfully, I woke up in the morning like, I can figure this out. Now, this is 2007. And back then, it was cool and it was safe to put services out on Craigslist. Well, within a day of putting out an ad, and I decided, you know what? I do a lot of analytical work. Let me do something fun. I'll do like PowerPoints or something for people. Well, I got contracted by a company that was going, this is Thursday. And on Tuesday, they had to fly to Switzerland and present 144 slides worth of data to Nestle. And their PowerPoint was a mess. I worked all weekend. I barely slept. I barely ate. I was just fixing slides, fixing stories, fixing slides, bleary-eyed on Monday morning before I went to work, sent them the slides. They replied back, "We love it. We absolutely love it. Total your hours and send us your invoice." So there I am, barely can see, totaling up the hours. It totaled to $1,535. And I thought to myself, Natalie, like, how did I get to be in my late 30s and not realize that I can make $1,500 in a weekend? Now, granted, I couldn't spend all weekends not eating and not sleeping, but there was something there. So I decided to let that ad keep running, and I got more clients, and I took on other projects. And the next thing I knew, this thing evolved. I was creating content. I was consulting on strategy. I was doing resumes. I started coaching. And a year and a half later, when my job disappeared, I thought, well, this thing's going pretty okay. What if I did it full time? And here we are 19 years later.
What's going through my mind is that we all have those moments and we sometimes need our own proof of concept. That's what was for you, right? People might have said, like, oh, you can do that. And I'm not so sure. Or maybe it hadn't even dawned on you because you didn't have that need, that urgency. It's those things that, and I know you have this beautiful way of giving people rocks and, you're putting those rocks in place. You now have grown this business and you're doing amazing things and you have expanded into three areas. Can you share how that evolution, because I think people might not realize, like, organically and then maybe purposefully, how you grow and scale?
First thing that I learned is say yes and figure it out. Now, of course, that has to be done within a container. I definitely would not say yes to brain surgery. I'm not qualified for that. But when there were things that people were asking that maybe pushed me a little bit of my comfort zone, I would say yes and figure it out. And then as time goes on, one of the beautiful things that if you're at the beginning of your business, I want you to know a lot of times when you're newer, you're taking on a lot of stuff, and maybe you're taking on stuff doesn't bring you tons of joy, but it brings you money, which you need. But over time, you're able to narrow the focus and you're able to figure out what brings you the most joy with the right amount of profit that becomes the right formula for you. For me, that became working with leaders and executives in the corporate world in two main buckets. One is career transitions, whether that's voluntary or involuntary, but individuals who are in a job search mode. And then there's individuals that are in place, but they want to have more impact, Natalie. Like they need to be seen more. They also need to balance the job versus the career and maintain their visibility. And then within that, I also work leadership with owners. And the third bucket, which is really exciting to me, is about 7 years ago, I started talking on this concept of the seven permissions of success. And this year, I put all of that into a book called Permission to Dominate Your Success. And now I'm doing a lot more coaching around what are the foundational pieces of success in terms of our mindset and our feelings. Because if we don't give ourselves permission to do certain things, then it doesn't matter how many solutions or strategies or technology or funnels or sales or business models there are out there. If you can get past your own self doubts, your own fears, your own self limitations.
I'm thinking about the women that you work with that led to the book. And what are some of the through lines of, the thing that we tell ourselves? We are the hardest on ourselves as you're talking about this. We tell ourselves things that you would never say to a friend, to a colleague, but we somehow give ourselves permission to talk to ourselves in this crazy voice. So I love that you have these seven things. And in doing this, what have you discovered?
I remember very specifically, I had this cluster of women executives that I was working with back in 2018. We could give you a specific example. One of them was a very high level executive, right? Top of the executive team, worked primarily with technology and was in transition, had worked in the same role for a long, long time, but now was time to make her next move and was very committed to doing that. But as we're reviewing her history, there was this one particular bullet on her resume she really objected to. It had to do with the technology she put in place that enables several million dollars worth of revenue. And her feedback to me was like, we can't put that on the resume. So I'm gently exploring this, trying to understand like what's the hesitation around this. And she's like, well, like I'm technology, I'm not revenue. I got to stay in my lane. And that's when I realized there was some layers, right? There were some internalized limitations from her leadership that basically kept her contained in a certain field, and then explaining and teaching and guiding about how she gets to claim her successes. It's her resume. And if this genuinely happened, she has authority to claim that. And that was a big breakthrough moment for her. It was a big game changer. And I can tell you, like, she has then gone on to be a very high end leader of some very major organizations. And these days, she ain't afraid of nothing. So there's certainly, Natalie, that internalization that I saw over and over again in a short period of time. And frankly, it made me so angry that these permissions came to me hard and fast, and I ran with it.
And for her, I mean, what a life changing moment. And it always is wonderful when you find that spark, and you are a spark for people. I know, having met you in person, seeing you today, you have this way of generating light to others. What have you seen with when women see, because sometimes when they see that freedom, they're like, well, that seems she was able to do that. Maybe I can too. Have you seen some of that also happening when this is transpiring for someone?
Very much so. And Natalie, I'll tell you, is one of the reasons that I really think that women need to be around women, right? I love women who participate in organizations where other women are. I do certain events where I bring women in together as well, because I do think that it's important to see validation, especially in a world where there's so many different messages about all the different containers and limitations that we need to have around us. Now, does that mean every woman on the planet is supportive of others? No, of course not. But I do think that seeing others take courageous steps, seeing others being bold can be reassuring, and courage can be contagious. And I think that that's something really important. But ultimately, it's not necessarily because somebody else is giving the permission, it's because that example allows people to give themselves permission.
I'm writing that down. Courage can be contagious because I think that is amazing. What a great way to frame that. Talk us through some of those 7 things of what is the process like when someone comes to you? What is she's an executive, she's got something's in the way, and you're peeling back the onion. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm envisioning like this, discovery.
I can tell you that it's so different for each person. So what I'll do instead, Natalie, is I'm going to guide you the way I laid it out in the book because I do believe that these kind of layer each other and flow into each other. So the first permission, which shocks people a lot, is permission to fail. And that's because if we don't give ourselves permission to fail, we usually are not giving ourselves permission to do anything big, bold, courageous. That leads into permission to be supported because we do not have to do everything ourselves. It's exhausting. Let's not set ourselves up that way. And frankly, there's a whole lot more support we can get if we just learn to ask, which then leads into permission to have baby steps, permission number 3. Because again, we're fed a lot of this hustle mentality. And look, Natalie, I know there's some women out there that type A, go, 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 go. And if you're in a place where that serves you and it energizes you and it's doing well for you in a healthy way, go. But if you are someone that needs to take a hesitant step forward, that is just as valid. And by the time you start taking these baby steps and you see some things starting to pop, that leads you into more confidence, which is permission number 4. Permission to feel confident, even exactly as you are today. You don't have to have a whole bunch of things checked off a list or a bunch of, letters behind your name or a bunch of other external approvals in order to feel confident. You can be confident for who you are. You can be confident with the potential you have. Which then leads us into permission number 5, where again, I'm usually with a lot of business owners and a lot of corporate leaders and a lot of people, especially women, very hesitant to talk about money. So permission number 5 is permission to prosper, getting you a lot more confident about the idea that you don't have to do this just to help other people. It's great that you want to do that, but you also need to be helping you and 80-year-old you, right? And we go very deep into that. Which then takes us to permission number 6, which is one you saw me talk about in Chicago, which is permission to walk away. And often can be, I think, one of the hardest ones. But when we do that in the right places, and sometimes we have to walk away from little things, little habits, sometimes we have to walk away from very big things. But that opens the door to permission number 7, which is permission to succeed. And sometimes we really need to sit with what success means to us, how it will change us, and the fact that not everybody can go where we're going. That's the path of the 7 permissions.
So good. And I think anyone listening to this is seeing themselves in one of those, at least one step, or has experienced different phases. But you're right, taking us on that ordered trajectory helps the brain understand, okay, I'm going to do this, then I can do that. And it gives the path forward to being able to get to that success. But if you're focused sometimes out of order, like success first, you're not going to get to that, even if you've had success in your career. Wouldn't you agree with that? Like, even if you've had big success, sometimes you have to pause and take those other steps.
True. And I tend to describe that, I talk about this in the book, Natalie, that it's kind of an upward spiral, right? Because when we get to a new level, we may need to reconquer one of those areas, right? If we get promoted, if our business all of a sudden grew by 50% this year, if we now have to have team members and so forth, we're challenged in different ways, and we may need to revisit that permission to fail. We may need to revisit feeling confident in this new stage in our life, right? We may have walked away from something big and that has changed our identity. And we need to revisit some of these things to keep us motivated, moving forward, and feeling good about ourselves. So I do think that I don't think it's a one and done. Like, okay, I read every chapter, I did all the exercises, I'm good for life now. I would love that to be the case. But the truth is that we're challenged in different ways with different circumstances, different people that we encounter, different levels of growth. And for me, this becomes a lifelong practice of making sure we're checking in with ourselves and we're not allowing ourselves to get stuck in any one of those 7 areas.
I feel like there's seasons, and certainly the women that I work with are in the second half season. We help women find their path forward. And there's probably parts of what you're describing you could slide in. Like once you understand, you can say, you know what, I'm at that point, permission to fail. I'm at that point where I need to walk away. How is that once they've kind of gone through this program with you? What have you seen that's like, oh, that's right. I can just tap into this and then that.
So I have clients that come in with me and they want to go through the entire experience, right? We do a longer term coaching program where we're going A through Z through all of this. But I also have events that I'm doing. In June, I did an event, 90 minutes, where I had a group of women come in and we all scored ourselves on these different permissions and then prioritized one. And then from that one, then there was what I call permission missions, right? The action steps to take to build your strength in that permission. And so that's important to know that it's not like, oh my gosh, if I want to do this, I got to start from one and work my way through. There's choice and there's incredible joy. They were reporting like in the conversations they had with each other, first of all, to realize they are not alone. They're not the only ones that maybe want to be stronger in some area than another, build their confidence, build their baby steps, walk away. And then also knowing that there's a cadence to this. And it, again, little baby steps. You can start small because baby steps leads to confidence because you're gaining evidence.
I'm wondering for you, because I got to see you speak, and that was the thing that drew me in. And I came up to you afterwards, and you shared that it wasn't accidental. And I believe that you need to be intentional with when you're speaking. But I'm wondering, in the lessons that you learned in preparing and being such an amazing, engaging speaker, do you tap into some of this yourself in terms of preparing or after? What? How are you using it?
I'm so glad you said that because being the speaker of this topic, being the author of this book, in and of itself creates an enormous amount of accountability. Because let's be honest, Natalie, there's just some days you just don't wanna, right? But I also find that it holds me accountable, right? I have to look at this and think about where am I stuck now, right? Has something scared me and I need to like pump up my confidence. And then there's methodology for me to do that. Even launching the book, right? Overcoming, like what if nobody reads the book? What if nobody gives me reviews? Like there's always something that's going to challenge us. So yes, this framework, first of all, not only have I seen it with my clients and they may have been inspired as, but I certainly have lived every single one of those permissions and I hold them close because there are very, very real tools and methodologies that I use, even making sure that I don't get stuck.
It's funny when you said the thing that we have to do to kind of encourage ourselves. This morning, I went to the gym. I work out pretty early in the morning, and I have a baseball hat that says I'm a baller. It has a different meaning for everyone. We were standing outside because it's kind of like you go in and you wait for the first class to finish and you go in. And there was a woman, and she's like, I couldn't sum up the energy to go, but I knew that I had to come in. And I said, that's why I have this hat on, because there's going to be moments in this workout that it's a reminder that's like, no, you're going to do this heavy lift because you're a baller and you're going to get this done. And I feel like sometimes we need those visual cues as well.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit about your rock? Because I think that's such a beautiful story. I would love for people to understand that that's a visual, that it's a cue, right?
Yes. So it's something that I started doing some years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So I went on vacation to Helen, Georgia. And nearby is another town called Dahlonega. And in Dahlonega, there is a gold mine. And you can do a tour of the gold mine. And then you can also do like rock mining, which is not really necessarily from the earth, but they have like these big giant buckets. And you go through this sluice and this whole process. And you get these beautiful stones. Got me totally hooked into all the stones and polishing them. So I've been polishing stones for a long time. I have a lot of rocks and a lot of gemstones. So what I tend to do for certain occasions is I will take these stones with me to my speaking engagements. And when it comes to these permissions, I'm either teaching all of them or one of them. And what I did in Chicago was as I invited the audience to make this commitment, right? To understand that when it comes to everything that they want to achieve, the only permission that they need really is their own. I wanted them to have this stone, right? This stone now becomes their permission stone because there are going to be rough days. I have a colleague that loves to say, I quit my job for 30 seconds every day. So this becomes a touchstone. Like, please take the stone, hold it, right? I have so many of them around. Take the stone, hold it, have it. So on those rough days, you remember the commitment, the declaration that you made here today, that you're going to give yourself permission to dominate your success.
For our listeners who are feeling in that vulnerable moment, maybe this is hitting them right now. But is there anything else that we can leave her with? What would be one last piece of advice you would share with her?
It doesn't matter how many other people are doing what you want to do. It doesn't matter how many people have done it before. It doesn't matter how many other people you see out there that you think are doing it better. There are other people in this world who will only be able to hear that message from you. The way that you're going to present it, the way that you're going to deliver it, the thing that you're dreaming about matters. It doesn't matter whether you're doing something holistic or you're doing something that's going to be a profitable business. It all matters. There's some kind of joy that you're going to bring to this world. If you need to take a break, then learn to rest rather than quit, because what you are bringing to this world is going to matter really, really, really a lot to someone. Keep going.
Liz, I could talk to you all day. I can't believe how fast the time goes. If people want to know more about all the amazing things that you're doing as a speaker, as an author, as a coach, where should they go to find you?
My favorite place to hang out is LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn as Liz M. Lopez. Please connect. I'd love to connect. And also, of course, you can learn more on my website, which is going through a little bit of an evolution because there's some new stuff coming. But lizmlopez.com. And Natalie, I'm sure you'll have some show notes with all the links. But yeah, come find me on LinkedIn. Tell me that you heard me on Natalie's show. Ask questions. Tell me what touched you. I love to engage with others.
You're right. I'm going to share all of that. Liz, thank you so much for jumping in, letting our listeners hear. I loved this conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this conversation with Liz today. I feel so energized, moved, and excited. And would you share this episode with a friend or colleague if it helped you in realizing that maybe there's a hidden treasure of your abilities that you forgot and you're going to start using it? Also, will you rate and review the show? It's how others find us. I appreciate all the listeners around the world that are tuning in every week. You matter. And I want you to keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.